it's easy in this moment to preach like doom and gloom about the film industry, about, the future of content, but it's exciting to be able to get into the batter's box and take a crack at that and say, well, maybe we're out here and maybe we can make something that people want to go see. It's very exciting for us.
All right, Nicole, we're back with another episode of Convos and Cameos. And, when I saw the opportunity to bring these guys back for another conversation, I just had to hop on it. I was super excited. I texted you, Nicole, are you available for this? Let's make it happen. Did you feel that energy from me when I was trying to make this happen and get everything going?
100%. And your excitement always just makes me that much more excited to hop onto these conversations too. So I'm super excited to chat with these guys about their work.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm looking forward to this conversation. The convo today is about the new short film Trapped, which is about a high school janitor's plight when a late night shift goes awry. The film won the Grand Prix at the 2025 Holly Shorts Film Festival. And that's super awesome for this film, and another accomplishment for our cameos today, who are the Oscar-nominated filmmaking duo of this film, whose shorts just keep getting better and better. So I would like to welcome to the stage Sam and David Cutler-Kreutz. Guys, welcome to Convos and Cameos. Guys, how much congratulations do I owe you since the last time we talked?
Yeah, not too much. You got to keep our egos in check. It's important.
Yeah, it's been a wild year, but a good one.
I'm sure. Both Nicole and I had the chance to watch Trapped. Nicole, I know you had some feelings about this movie.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'm just a big thriller fan in general, and watching this, I think I was talking to Thomas about this earlier. Short films that can impart such a strong message in such a short amount of time always just makes it that much more impressive, on top of your already incredible filmmaking and that thriller element of it with the tension. So huge congratulations to you both.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks.
For sure. So guys, the last time I talked with you was actually almost literally 2 years ago, because the Vancouver Film Festival is happening again. And that's where I chatted with you the first time about Lien. You guys have just been on a wild roller coaster ever since then. I kind of want to start with Lien really quick because it's interesting back then when we talked about it, how topical it was then, and how much more topical. Just really quick, can you give an idea of how the relevancy of that film has kind of manifested in the current state of the United States?
Yeah, so Lien, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's a film about immigration, and it's specifically about a couple who goes in for their immigration. They're going in for their green card interview, and some stuff happens, one of the folks going in for his green card interview ends up being taken by ICE. And so actually we started writing this film in 2019, and we started we really did a lot of the writing in 2020. And so, obviously, immigration and ICE and, green cards relating with ICE, those are front page of the news right now. But when we first started writing this film, it was about a process that no one had heard of. And, in general, it wasn't even something anyone was talking about.
Yeah, but I think, one of the things that I think Lien speaks to, and I think Trapped speaks to as well, is, the forces, the kind of world forces that we were responding to as artists and filmmakers that got us interested in the story. When we read the article in 2018, I think, in the New York Times about this kind of sort of unknown process that happens that was very kind of niche in some ways, but we felt really reflected in the world in some ways. I think those forces, of, alienation and tribalism and racism, all these things, those haven't gone away, in fact, they've only kind of gotten compounded here in the US and I think across the world in certain ways, we can see it around. And so I think that, it's crazy to us and it's depressing, honestly, but it's, as filmmakers, it was kind of, the film met its moment in a kind of a nice way, in a hard way. But I think, since before, even from Vancouver, when we talked to you all the way to the Oscars, and even past the Oscars, I mean, really, the spring of this year was sort of like, the most intense time, but it's continuing on. And it's obviously the news is going to stop covering it as much because it's so regular now, but I think this idea of people trying their hardest to do the right thing, to come into the country and be, just everyday citizens, and facing ICE and facing the government, I think is a tragedy, obviously, and it's one that has come to the forefront. And I think I feel proud that our film was able to kind of speak to that conversation and maybe help spark, conversations around that in some small way,
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of ways we can go with this conversation from here. I'm glad that we've caught up about Lien. Nicole, I'm gonna let you get first crack at a question. Which direction do we want to go in here?
Well, speaking on Lien, I'd love to talk about the Academy Awards quickly with you guys,
Sure, yeah.
because I mean, I watch it every single year. It's always been a big part of my life with even just my family growing up.
Yeah.
Was there something about being in that atmosphere that surprised you on the awards day? Like, what was that whole process like for that day?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it's funny, people ask us, like, for instance, like with Trapped. So Trapped won South by Southwest, and it won Palm Springs and some other festivals. And people are always curious, like, what'd you do after? Like, what'd you do immediately? And it's kind of the same with the Oscars. And, we look at each other and we're kind of like, well, we go back to writing. We go back to telling stories. And I think that was one of the things that struck me through the process, was that at the end of the day, like, we love telling stories, and what an amazing place to be there and to be celebrated and to be able to celebrate with all these other incredible filmmakers. And we looked at each other and we were like, so can we go write? I think that was like a really fun piece for us, was, just going back to the core, which is that, like, we just love good stories.
Yeah. And I think on top of that, I think the thing about the Academy Awards, especially for a short film, and one of the reasons why I think the category, we've been lucky enough to join the Academy now, after the Oscars, and be able to help guide this in some ways. But like a short film, when you make it, the cast and crew, just by necessity, every short, the cast and crew and everybody involved is not getting paid a lot of money. It's you're sort of doing it on a favor. And most people, when you make a short, if you're a crew member, you're like, is this short ever going to come out? I don't know, whatever. And so it's really an incredible gift. It was an incredible gift for us to be able to bring so much of our cast and crew to the Oscars, and just as a thank you, like, we owe them everything for the film, and the least we can do is try and bring them to a really cool event. And so that was a fun experience. But I also think the Oscars and being in the Academy it's exciting to be able to shape the future of storytelling. And I think, we are trying to bring stories to the screen in shorts and in features, hopefully soon, that we think are exciting, and be part of that conversation of what the future of movie making looks like, and what the younger generation kind of bring up and champion going forward into theaters for people to watch.
Yeah, I'm going to come back around to that. Very, very great things you guys are saying here. When I went back and listened to our interview, I remembered you guys teased Trap at the end of that interview. You guys mentioned that you were working on it.
Yeah.
And I think it's so cool for me to have been doing this long enough to talk with filmmakers and then see their next project come to fruition. And of course, in this case, find so much success. So tell me more about the development of Trapped, now that you can talk a little bit more about it now that we've seen the movie.
Yeah,
I also, really quick, I also am very proud of myself for that synopsis I gave. I was really happy with how condensed I was able to make it, because I like talking.
What happens in the film, so it's kind of hard to like cut it down,
I know I like talking about your movies, but I don't want to give anything away, and so like I was really happy with that sentence I came up with.
Nice, yeah, I think you nailed it.
Anyway, tell me about the process of making Trapped.
Yeah, I mean, it came, I think, from two different directions. I think from its foundational piece, it came from us. Our mom was a teacher. We grew up as little kids, running around in diapers and whatever around the school, around the school that she taught at night, and after school. And, I think so much of the film came from our perspective, being young people, but at a school, but also kind of getting this perspective into how faculty and students and staff all connect to each other and all the power dynamics. So I think that was one of the kind of core foundational pieces of Trapped. And then for us also talking a little bit more about what are some of the kind of ways in which privilege and privilege runs in this country, and how does education affect that? And we think about how privilege is created and kind of goes up in this country.
Yeah. I think to jump on to what David's saying, I think we try hard, and we tried in Lien in all of our shorts to really try and respond to the things that we feel around us, sort of in the water, in the zeitgeist in some ways. And I think there a lot of people in the country right now, and when we read the film, are feeling like that kind of gap of have and have nots is just widening at an almost an exponential rate, and through all sorts of reasons. But I think, looking at that particular gap through this very specific lens and that we knew really well was an interesting way to kind of like look at it and try. And there's an interesting kind of idea in the film of like raising, how do you raise your kids? How do you teach your kids? And how do we as a collective society raise our children? What do we teach them? What do we impart to them as they grow up and develop? And the people who go to prep school and in general, they'll go on to universities and kind of run the country, run the world. And so it's like, how do they get their start? Where are their core values implanted in, and how are we doing that as a society? What's acceptable and what's not acceptable? And that conversation, I think, was interesting to us.
Yeah. Nicole, you were just talking about the suspense and the tension and anxiety in this movie. I'm sure, I felt it too, right? Like it was just something that's really tense. And I love that about your guys's films.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that stuck out to me too was just the use of lighting and darkness as well. And
Yeah.
I'd love to hear what you guys thought about that and more of the cinematography aspects and those kind of elements to bring the tension and that out through not only the dialogue, but what was happening on the screen too.
Yeah, I think, Gabe Connolly, our cinematographer, who's a genius, brilliant, go look up his work, did a lot with very little. But I think a lot of that came from, it's funny, if you think about Lien, it's quite close. That film was very, very close on the characters. And I think we're trying almost as we make different pieces of work, almost in a response to that, it felt like Trapped. And if you watch Trapped, you'll see it kind of starts with these like really wide, kind of almost like a montage of these empty spaces. And I think we're, the putting these characters in these larger spaces was an interesting almost foil to what we did in Trap, was sort of getting in super close. And so I think, lighting wise, a school at night is just an incredible space. It's like a location that we all kind of know in our hearts. Like we all went to high school. We all kind of know what it's like, but after hours there, you kind of get to flip that location on its head, and all these rooms that feel kind of normal get spooky and kind of get this interesting sort of like horror feel to them. So I think we tried hard to really kind of like lean into that horror world and a bit of that kind of like, the what's around the corner, what's around the hall, what's down the hall. And again, sound design wise, it's the same way, kind of trying to lean into those sort of like, what is the symphony of this school at night? The noises of the pipes and the hissing and the buzzing of the lights, and that kind of like when you're alone in a place, what do you start to hear? What do you start to see? And it allows you to kind of like imagine, what might be there.
Yeah, David, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, thinking about, just in the framing of it, how do we make sure that we're seeing something you've never seen? How do we take this angle on something you've seen before and push it into something that you haven't seen? How many folks have wandered around a school late at night? How do we take something that feels, like you understand it and then twist it? So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, guys, I don't know. I'm going to get very personal with how I feel about this movie, because when I talked with you last time, I told you guys I'm going to be keeping up with your career, and I am, and I'm so excited about that, because the way you guys tell stories and are able to capture so much into a short film, and also just have such a consistent style. I think I said that last time too. Have such a consistent style. It's really inspiring, and I'm sure that filmmakers would love to know your secret. Tell us more about what things you guys do like that to keep that consistency, to keep that quality, to really make sure you're getting the best out of the work that you do.
I think that for us, style is in the rearview mirror. It's kind of in hindsight. We don't look, for everyone else, they can look back at what we're up to and see, oh yeah, that's sort of the wake of the boat going by. But for us, we're on the tip. All we see is open ocean. And so for us, we can kind of go any direction we want. And I think what makes style, work for us is a consistency of choices in some ways, and maybe an interesting metaphor is like, we have certain commitments to certain things, quality in certain ways, things that we care about, things that we don't care about, an interesting example, for instance, is like hair and makeup. We haven't had hair and makeup on any of our shorts. And that's just a choice we made. We didn't think it was required for these films, but it gives a certain, by not doing that, but the lack of it gives a certain, style across, the films, or we would commit to this or that. Certain things that I think we really, it's that commitment across multiple things. We're not pushing for one style, but I think it's our consistency of choice in different places that ends up creating a style that, works for us.
Yeah, I really don't think we're ever aiming to try and do a specific style in some way. I think we'll look at reference films to say like, oh, how did this person do it? That's brilliant. But I think, like a lot of times people are like, oh, I want this film to be I want it to be pulled from here and pulled from there and pulled from that. And I think for us, it's much more like, how can we see how other people do it? But like, how is it that we want to do? What do we think is effective from our perspective?
Yeah, but it's kind of more too, like, I think part of it is just like making a thing that you like. You have to like the thing, And so it's like, we work really hard to create a thing that we ourselves think is good and fun to watch. And part of like an interesting example of that is like when once the film's edited and like, when we're doing like color or sound notes, oftentimes, we'll know the film's working because if we're watching through to be giving notes for the sound designer, and we'll catch ourselves forgetting to like make notes and just watching the movie. And like, we're like, oh, okay. We know it's like a trigger point. Like, okay, we know, okay, when that starts to happen, you're in the right, space because you actually like the thing you're watching enough to keep watching and forget that you're supposed to be doing something else.
Yeah.
And so once you kind of can polish it to that point, we start to know like, okay, we're in the right space. And so again, as it comes back to style, I think, it's just what we like to watch. I think our films they're edited quite quickly, and that's just our taste, I guess. We stop the shot when we get bored and move to a new shot, or whatever, when it feels like, okay, that shot needs to be done. It's time to go to something else. And you could say, well, why, our attention span is the same across all the films. So it feels edited the same way because we got bored at the same kind of places or whatever when the shot or whatever. It's more subtle in that way than it is like trying to go at a specific thing, I guess, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that's very fascinating for sure.
Something I love too when we're talking about in the aspect of listening to young filmmakers who might be watching this conversation.
Yeah.
Something from you guys, is there a lesson that you've learned throughout your experiences filmmaking that's kind of stuck out with you, that's taught you, or something that you'd love to know when you first started in film versus now where you are?
Yeah, I think one of the things that was most helpful for us when we started out was thinking about filmmaking as a process of multiple films. And, I think it's really easy to get tunnel visioned in on like, this one film is like the film and it's the only thing that matters and it's got to be perfect. And, and the truth is it's not going to be. And so I think it was really helpful for us to say, we kind of slowed down and said like, okay, we're going to make 10 short films. Hopefully we're probably not going to make that many, but like, this is just one of those 10. This one's probably going to be bad. The next one's probably going to be bad, but maybe a little bit better. But somewhere along that ride, we're going to make something that's good. And that's going to, be successful. And that's going to push, our career forward. And we're going to learn stuff along the way. And it just lowered the temperature. It gave us space to be creative and not worry so much about, like this film has to be the one, which is just such a hard place to create from. It's so hard to be creative when you feel like you're under the gun. This decision matters more than any other decision. It's like, no, it's fine. It's just a thing. You'll make another one, Yeah.
And I do the same thing where it's like, if you have the budget to make a short film, take that amount of money, cut it into thirds and make 3 short films. because you'll have more fun, you'll have more success, you'll learn a lot more making 3 than you will making 1. I think the other thing that I think about a lot making films, and this is something that I've learned the hard way many, many times, is just that, only we get to say, especially at the short film level, when it's done. It's so easy to stop making a thing because it's hard, or because somebody else says, I don't want to work on it anymore. Or, we've had, if you look at all of our shorts, we've had things go wrong at every film, at every level, all the time. It's like a 5-alarm fire constantly. There's always something, that is a total disaster. And so I think, and only we get to, it's so easy to sort of throw the towel and say, well, okay, I guess we're, not going to make it because of this reason, or that, we wrote the script and, I told everybody I'm filming at this time and the script's not finished. So we're going to film an unfinished script. And it's like, well, don't do that. You can just push the time, finish the thing, that make sure it's good. Only you get to say when the film is ready to be shot. Only you get to say when you're done shooting. Only you get to say when you're done editing. The editor says, I don't want to work on the film anymore. I'm bored, or whatever. There's more money, or there's a million reasons the editor stopped working on it. It's like, well, is the film actually done? Is it done being edited? If not, edit it yourself, find a new editor, whatever. It's so easy to kind of like let somebody else dictate the pace of what you're doing. And again, only we or you, the filmmaker, know when the thing that you made is good. And so make it good until it's good, and work as hard as you can. I think that's something that we have tried to live by. And
it's happened on every single piece. I mean, in Trapped, Caitlin Carr are incredible editors, super talented.
Yeah.
Like put in, 10 months.
Edited Lien.
She edited Lien also. Yeah. She put in like 10 months on Trapped. And at some point was like, okay, guys, like I love you, but like I can't do this
no more
anymore.
time. No more time. For this,
And we look at each other and we're like, that, of course, like you worked so hard and it's incredible and it's not done. And so then Sam and I took it and we edited it for another 3 or 4 months by ourselves because it wasn't done yet. And
only we could say when it was done. And I think that's
And it made the piece, it got through some of the stuff that needed to happen.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out earlier.
Yeah.
I think it is so insightful to see and to hear about how things can go wrong. Because I think, particularly when I talk with critics, I think we look at the final product of a film and we say, oh, everything must have went perfect for this.
Oh my God, no.
It's so easy to kind of have that assumption because there's a final product, it made it to the finish line. And then, sometimes critics kind of just have this like subconscious assumption that, everything should have gone perfectly and you had every opportunity to make this perfect. And so it's interesting to hear, to have these conversations and to hear like, things go wrong all the time. And I think we know that. We just don't think about it when we have a final product to watch. And so, this is just my extended kudos on you guys getting through that, those challenges.
Looked at a recipe in a cookbook and looked at the picture and you're like, oh man, I got this recipe. I know what this picture is supposed to look like. It's gonna taste amazing. Look how good that picture looks. Look, if I just flip this over, there's a perfect recipe, a script of how to make this thing, how to make the picture that I can picture right here. And how many times you made that dish and it's like, okay, it does not look like a picture at all. And it's like most times, and so, that's just life. That's how it is. And we try our hardest to try and make it look like what we imagined it was going to look like. And, it's hard to get there.
The creative process. Yeah. We have to bring this to a close here in a few minutes. But my final question is going to be very similar to my last final question I asked you guys, which is about a feature. Guys, I am so ready for a feature from you guys.
We are too.
Tell me what's the update on that process?
Yeah, so we're hard at work on our debut feature, which is amazing, and it's most of it's under wraps right now. But what we can say is, if you've liked our other stuff, you like Trapped, Lien, or Flounder, or past films, you're gonna love it. It's really fun. It's intense, but it has heart. It's great. So,
hopefully coming soon. Yeah, stay tuned.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Nicole, you want to close us out with one more question?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'd love to know from you guys going into the future, like what drives you to keep motivating, to keep going forward with these films? Like, so going into your future now, what are you most looking forward to about starting this process, which is kind of a new part of this process for you guys?
I think for us, we just have pages and pages of ideas of stories that we want to tell, and so many different kinds of stories, and we really let the type of story drive the medium in that way. And so, we have lots of short film ideas, and it's been really fun to get to open up that whole notebook full of feature film ideas and longer stories and say, what can we make in here? And so I think that's what drives us is just having all these stories that we want to tell and being really excited to being able to tell them in a different way, having more time to be able to investigate a little deeper and go a little bit deeper.
Yeah. And I think also, you're going to laugh at this. I don't know if here's an answer off the cuff that David hasn't heard yet, but I think it's easy in this moment to preach like doom and gloom about the film industry, about, the future of content. People don't go to the theaters, yada, 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 yada. I think maybe the data bears that out, maybe it doesn't. But it's exciting to be able to get into the batter's box and take a crack at that and say, hey, well, maybe we're out here and maybe we can make something that people want to go see, and try and use what we've learned and what we, know in our soul to be true about storytelling, about keeping people interested, keep people invested in the film to make a piece that might affect somebody. And I think, it's, I don't know, to try and combat against in the most, tangible way possible and making work to combat against the sort of like slow, crushing, soul grinding, news cycle about the film industry that exists. And so I'm excited to kind of be able to get out there and try and test our mettle against, audiences and say, hey, maybe we can bring something to you that you might want to watch. So it was very exciting for us, I think.
It's very exciting for me too. And I'm happy I've got Nicole on the train now.
Absolutely. Now I'll be following your career closely too.
Well, don't follow too closely, but
I don't know, guys. Can I go ahead and just RSVP you for the first interview with your feature?
First thing, put in the books. We can't promise anything, but why not?
Well, I will be pursuing it, and and it again, guys, it was really awesome to catch up with you and to hear your insights on Trapped and your career. I appreciate this, and I look forward to seeing what you guys do next in this feature. I'm very much looking forward to it.
Well, thanks so much. We're excited. It's excited to share it when it's ready.
Yeah, and thanks so much for having us on. Such a pleasure to be back.